Hey guys, and good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. I can see a few people are already here. I know that Anaki's been watching me test the chat, so good evening, Anaki. Hi, Martin Watt as well. We've got Tronics, Musixon, Emir. Hey man, Emir, good to see you here, dude. Audacious Ahab, I'm assuming that's Ahab from the Top Clack Discord. And Mr. Evil Genius himself. So welcome guys, we're just going to take a couple of minutes before we start the build, which this week is a KBD67 in a lovely grey colour. We're going to talk about the board, talk about what's changed in the design since the last one I built, which wasn't on Top Clack, it was on my own streams. And then we'll talk about what we're going to do building it wise, and how these switches have been prepared, which are GAT yellows. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And we've got hello, it's DNL as well. So this board isn't mine. Again, I keep saying it's really rare that I build anyone else's boards, but I am building this for DNL. So hello, it's DNL. Good afternoon and good evening, sir. I think you're in Europe, so you're probably an hour ahead of me. It's 8 PM here, so I imagine it's about 9 PM for you. And we've got the lovely V Vega as well, so welcome to the stream, Vega too. So as I say, this board is for DNL. He wanted someone to build it for him in ISO layout, and of course, as everyone knows, that's kind of my jam. So I offered to build it for him and take it from there. So we're going to build that later on. We'll talk about the layout he wants and how the board is, and the kind of revisions I've made since I last looked at one of these boards, probably 6 months ago now as well. We've got Chris Swires with the resub for 11 months in a row. Thank you, Chris. You know I love you, dude. And I'm really sad you're not coming to the UK meetup in a couple of weeks, because it's ages since I've seen you. So I'm really sad about that. Okay. So we'll give it a few minutes for the bot to ping before we actually start doing the build and start talking about the board and how it's changed. So we'll get there shortly. We've also got Starston in the chat as well, so hello. And Chris sends 3 nice big purple hearts. So thank you very much for that, Chris. Okay. I'm being tagged somewhere. Okay, somewhere else. Apparently Zeal has purchased the main Discord server or something. I think it might be a joke. We've also got Ham Kenobi in chat as well. Hello there, fine gentlemen. No, you, good sir. And we've also got I'm going to butcher this name, but Kokason says, what's good in the hood, my dude? Everything is going okay. I am feeling a lot better. As most of you know, my mum sadly passed away a couple of weeks ago, but I don't want to harp on about that. I'm doing well. I'm getting there. The funeral's in a few weeks, 23rd of April, so I've got a little bit of time before that. Everything's all on track for that and all sorted. So we are getting there, back to work next week, which I'm kind of excited for because I miss being at work. We've also got Pilot XJ as well. Good evening, good sir. It's good to see you on stream. And as I say, we will be starting in a couple of minutes talking through this particular KBD67 and also another one that I've got coming, which will be my own personal KBD67. For those of you that remember or have looked at my old streams before I joined Top Clack, I did do a KBD67 build back in October time last year, and that was my final stream and giveaway. And the lucky winner of that was Nebulance. I'm not sure if Nebulance watching, but yeah, he won my last KBD67 that I built, which was in the navy colour, which is more of a metallic pale baby blue. Shelf tour when? I can give you a brief shelf tour now. So if we turn and look up here, you probably can't see it. There's a shelf just out of view that's got the Hyper 7 on. I'll just tilt the camera, you'll be able to see it. Oh, there you go, Hyper 7 up at the top there, the big old boy. And then on the shelf beneath that, I've got a Pearl, which is the upright board, and a Canoe. Coming down another shelf where the card is, we've got the Vern just behind the card. We've got a Zephyr just to the side of that. Underneath we've got the VEA, which is the one you can see with the blue space bar just there, and then the Alice in the corner. And then on the bottom row we've got a polycarbonate Singer, and then we've got a prototype Noxery X75, so that's a 75% board. Over on the other side we've got my Hyper 7 version 2 at the bottom, as well as the macro pad. Coming up a level, we've actually got 2 boards sat just here at the side of the TV. So that's a Clue board at the front, and then behind that is the TMO50. And then the whiteboard just to the side of it, just here, that is a JER Mini or Germany. Coming up a layer, then we've got just behind here. Hold on, let me just move the sponsor logo so you can see this, guys. Is it gonna let me do it? There we go. So just behind where the sponsor logo was, we've got a Noxery 268AG, which was on the end just here. That is my red SAM build for this board, which is the J01. And then to the side of that, I've got a wooden Create board 60%. On the shelf above, you can just see here, that's actually a pink board, and that's got Brown Alps build, so it's a 66 key Brown Alps build. And then right over in the corner, just here, I've got a Soda Board 77, couldn't remember the name of it, which was a friend of mine in the UK that he developed. And then right up at the top, again, I'll adjust the camera, we've got the Cypher that I built on stream last week. And then I've got 3 boards stacked up there, which are all PCBs from different builds. So there is a KBD661, a KBD66, and what's the third one? The last one is the Royal 66 board. Then I've got a Mech Mini 2, which is just here. And then I've got a Matthias soft click board up there, which I'm going to harvest some switches off. So that's everything that's out on the shelves at the minute. How are we looking? There we go. Just move this logo back up. There we go. So there we go, guys. That's everything on the shelf at the minute. It does change quite often depending on what boards I'm using and what boards I'm not using. So if you have any questions about those boards, do let me know. Just catch up with chat. Hello, it's DNL said, could you show me the scratches inside on cam quickly? I will do when I'm talking through the board. Just give me a couple of minutes when we start and we'll take a look at that. Amir says, is that the full collection or just the higher end stuff? Really nice. That's just what I use on a regular basis, or I have plans for, or I'm halfway through a project on. There is, you can see there's like an ottoman down here that is full of boards as well, and then I've got some storage underneath the desk that I'm sat at the minute, and I've also got a load of boards in the garage. There's about 25 boards in the garage that aren't built as yet, and maybe 30 boards are built and are in cases or boxes as well. Which is my favourite? Ask me that on any different day, I'm going to give you a different answer. Right now, though, it's the J01. So this is my personal custom board, and a few of you guys will have seen that previously. That is probably my favourite board right now, but I prefer it with the other build. Whilst I love a Holy Panda and tactile build, the plate on this one is brass, which you can probably just see between the keycaps up here. The other build, which is just behind my head here, behind the Zeal logo, that is the red SAM, but that's on a carbon fibre plate, and it has inks in it, and I vastly prefer that build on it. So when I'm doing the J01 group buy in a couple of weeks time, which I've just released prices for those that are interested, that is the board that I'm going to basically offer people with a carbon fibre plate, because it's the best version of the J01. Not to say this is bad, because it's not, but that one is far superior in my opinion. Ask me on any other day and I'm going to give you a different answer. I like all the boards for different reasons. The Vern sounds fantastic, but it lacks ISO. The Zephyr is incredibly solid but lacks ISO. The Pearl is 40%, so I struggle on it, but it's incredibly impressively put together. The polycarbonate Singer looks and sounds fantastic, but I really, really want a carbon fibre plate for it. The VEA, that has a copper plate that I've had custom made for it, which is a fixed copper plate, but I really wish I'd have had some additional cutouts put into it for meme cutouts for sound definition. The Alice is fantastic. The list goes on. The list goes on. I could never give you all of that information, guys. It changes on a daily basis. Pingu, hey man, loved your stream earlier on, dude. I do not know how you soldered SMD stuff that quickly, because it takes me like 5 hours. And Nia Jonathan has subscribed for 4 months on the chat, and he says 4 months. Well done, dude. Thank you very much for that, and I hope your holiday was fantastic as well. I know you were in some place that I've been recently, so I hope that was good. Pilot XJ says, so many boards, thanks for sharing. Not a problem. How do you like being on PC boards versus aluminium? I really like the sound of a PC board. I've actually joined the E6.5, the exclusive 6.5 65% board in polycarbonate, purely because I love the sound that they have. They're just fantastic. It's really good. The reason why I like the TMO50 so much as well is because it has the base that's polycarbonate, and it just sounds so nice. It really, really adds that extra value to the sound. Pashmaniac says, new stream. Oh, I forgot someone gifted a sub. There you go, yeah. Bot pinged. Oh, the bot pinged. Yeah, excellent, excellent. Oh gosh, I can see that the main Discord servers had every channel renamed for KB Zelios, KB Xylence, and all of that kind of stuff. So I have no idea what's going on there, but it seems like it's a bit of a meme. As you did say, the bot has pinged. Yeah, I can see that. What's the difference between carbon fibre and brass plate weight aside? So they're broadly similar in terms of feel. Apart from the carbon fibre is maybe slightly softer. A lot of people expect carbon fibre to be flexible, and I've actually got a carbon fibre plate under here, which I'll show you in a few minutes. This board's been built with an aluminium plate, but I've got a KBD67 coming of my own, which I'll be building with a carbon fibre plate, and I wanted to show that off as well and just talk about that. But broadly speaking, in terms of its flexibility and its feel, it's similar to brass. It's not flexible like people expect it to be. It's quite firm as carbon fibre, but it is really, really nice. It does have a massive effect on sound. It really lends itself to not having any ping because it's not touching metal. I do think plastic plates are really good for that as well, and I think the future of keyboards, if you want firm, is going to be carbon fibre, and if you want flexible, it's going to be POM or polycarbonate or something like that. We're going to move away from using the metals. I think the plastics are actually more premium when it comes to sound quality than the metals are. So I think that's where we're going to go. Sashimi says hello, and Alex F2 does as well. So good evening, gentlemen. Neo Jonathan says I ate so much I gained like 4 kilograms. Yeah, I did the same when I was there as well. And Super Duper with 16 months worth of subs on Twitch Prime. Thank you very much, dude. That's fantastic. So thank you very much for doing that, dude. Quadik says hello. Pokemon Kid says Zeal bought Metkeys lull. Is that a meme or is that real? I don't know what's ever going. I'd like to personally thank everyone that has purchased a Zeal product to help fund the server acquisition. We've made many improvements to be made, including a change of the mod team. Okay, what is going on? It's got to be an April Fool's, but early. It has to be. Talisman Solutions donates his signature 1,111 bits. Thank you, dude. I really appreciate that, man. Really appreciate that. I hate April Fool's jokes. There might be one that I'm arranging. Maybe I'll have to watch out on some of the channels tomorrow. All hail Zeal. Zeal best. Only Zeal stabs from now on. Facts. Play nice. Play nice. Good evening, Soren, as well. Okay, so we've been chatting for about 15 minutes now, so it's probably time to start looking at the board. And start actually cracking on with this build. So this is a board for DNL, who is in chat. This is a grey KBD67. As you can see, there's a couple of marks in the bottom, which we'll come to and look at in a second. But from the outside, the match between the anode is pretty damn close. The lights are probably showing it a little bit more off than it is. The board on the outside and the exterior, excuse fingerprints, is in phenomenal condition. There are no marks, there's no scratches, nothing that I can see that looks out of the way. I'll show you the back side. There we go. And then show you this side as well. So as I say, the board looks fantastic. On the inside of the board, let's just move this out, there are a couple of marks. Now, the first thing I've noticed is that on the last version of the board I built, it didn't have this hole here or this hole here. Now, those are screw marks and screw holes. They've got grub screws in, which hold I won't call it a weight, it's an accent piece on the base. So those hold that in. In terms of the USB slots changed from the last one I built. It was USB mini. This one is categorically USB-C, and it's also a much neater and tidier hole than was previously there on the old version of the board. In terms of the quality on the interior, there are a couple of marks. You can see one just here. That's basically raw aluminium underneath there. You can probably see that shining and reflecting back under the light. And there's also one down in this corner as well. That's exactly the same. It's raw aluminium. They look like hook marks, and there's also another one just up here as well. I've just noticed, didn't see that before, just in front of my finger. And I'm kind of disappointed they're there, to be honest, because I didn't notice any of that on the previous build I did of one of these boards. And you would absolutely expect that, you know, they'd put, considering that the inside of these aren't anodized at all, which some boards have them anodized, you can probably see they're quite shiny inside the holes. I would have expected that there would have been some sort of screw out of each of these, and that's the way the board would have been held and hanging before it was anodized. On this particular one, all the marks are inside. There is some graininess going across here, which is probably difficult to get on the camera. But again, it's all on the inside. On the exterior faces, everything is absolutely pristine. There is no issues with it. So, you know, you get what you pay for. It's a Keyboard Fans product. It's low price. It's excellent condition on the exterior. If you can live with some marks on the interior, which most of us can, most of us will never see them apart from when they're building the board, then this is absolutely fine. So there we go. So I just wanted to talk about that. In terms of the top of the case, again, everything is fine on both the inside and the outside. There are no marks whatsoever anywhere on this top piece. All of the marks are just on the bottom piece. Okay, in terms of the PCB, not much has changed here. The only thing that has changed is that it's now USB-C, so it should be easier to fit together, and it's a little bit powerful. And the other thing that's changed is there is a significant number more underglow LEDs for a board that doesn't support underglow. So that's something else that's changed. I'm not quite sure why. This board also has a reset button that's nice and flush. The last one I built had a massive red button on and risked grounding out on the base of the board, so I actually removed that prior to my last build stream of one of these as well. So I am glad to see that the PCB's had some revisions. It looks quite smart, it looks nice. There's a little bit of messiness going on with this bottom row. There's a few different options, so we'll be careful when we come to build that. But in terms of layout, DNL has requested full backspace, ISO enter, 6.25 bottom row with 3 125U keys here, 2 125 keys here, and then the standard arrows for a 65%. He's also requested split left shift, which is a standard ISO layout, so you can see that over here on this board. That's split left shift as well, and then full caps lock, not stepped, so that's going to be full caps lock on this particular build. So that's the layout we're going to do, and that's the PCB. In terms of the plate, we are going to be building this with the standard universal aluminium plate. This supports all of the options we need, and as you can see, this board it's kind of a cross between bottom mount and sandwich mount. So let's just show you that actually, guys, because I did call it bottom mount on the previous build, and it isn't really. So in terms of how this board works, the tabs line up to markers on the, so you can probably just see that if I hold this up to the camera, you can probably see that there is markers here on the actual case where the tabs just sit. So that kind of sits on those tabs, and then you screw downwards to hold it all into place. Now, most people would assume that means bottom mount, and kind of it does, but if you took these tabs away, what you'll see is that there's actually a lip that runs all the way around here. It might be hard to show you this on camera, but that lip all the way around runs where the plate sits. So these edges of the plate actually sit on there. So even if you remove these tabs, the plate would be retained in the correct space, in the correct orientation, and it'd be clamped in place by the top piece. And when we have a look at the top piece, you can see again, especially on this edge where the light catches it nicely, that the plate actually rests just underneath the edge of this. Now, if this was a true bottom mount like the Canoe is, what you would find is that if you tried to push the plate vertically into the gap, it would sink inside the board. What we're actually finding, if I show you at this angle, is that the plate doesn't actually fit inside. No matter how you wiggle it, it doesn't fit inside because it wants to rest on the two edges and become sandwiched. So it's technically a sandwich mount board, but it does screw downwards, so it's also bottom mount in that kind of sense. So I hope that helps explain the mounting position on this board. So we're going to use a universal plate on this particular build. It has all the relevant switch cutouts that support everything that DNL needs, and the board will be just fine. In terms of the version I've got coming, I wanted to build mine with fixed ISO, but also wanted to go with carbon fibre. So I do have a carbon fibre plate ready to go for that build when it arrives. So I've got a chocolate one of these ordered. So I'm hoping that Wade pulls it out of the bag soon, because I've been waiting for it for some time now. And as far as I know, it's the only chocolate one he's doing. So there we go. But as I say, this is the carbon fibre plate, and you can see it's also got the mean cutouts for sound development around a lot of the keys as well. But it is a fixed solid layout. So there we go. But that's for my personal one. In terms of switches today, we are going to be using lubed Gateron yellows. So I've lubed these. They are completely stock in terms of all the components. So the slider, the spring, the housing is all stock. These are the white based switches. These are what DNL has chosen. I've lubed these with Krytox 106 on the springs, and I've lubed the actual stems with 205 grade 0, had to remember that. So these are lovely and smooth, no ping, really, really quiet. Gat Yellow is probably one of my favourite stock switches next to inks. I probably would have chosen the dark bases rather than the SMD ones personally, but I'm pretty sure that these are going to sound just fine anyway in this particular board. Additionally, rarely for one of my builds because I never use them myself, but we will be installing LEDs. So these have been sent by DNL directly. I'm not sure what colour they are, so DNL, if you're there, tell me, let me know. I don't know what colour these are, it doesn't say on the packet. Either that or you can surprise us and we'll see when I plug a couple in. So there we go. That's how we're going to build the board today. So before we start, oh, one last thing I didn't talk about before, but the stabilizers for this. So keyboard fans do send stabilizers out with this board. I thought they changed to use GMK stabilizers. When I looked at the ones that they were sent with the board, because DNL had it delivered here, they weren't they weren't cherry stabilizers at all or GMK screw-in ones. They were just some generic Chinese ones, which is against the advertisement on the page at the minute. So what I've done is I've actually dug out some spare clip-in cherry stabs, so we're going to be using proper cherry stabs for the build today, DNL. So I've already arranged these, and we'll be clipping and lubing those as we go. So these are just clip-in stabs, not screw-in ones. I don't have enough screw-in ones spare, which reminds me, Fax, if you're watching, I'm going to need to put an order in because I'm going to need some more. So we'll be using these today, and we'll go through those as for the first part of the build. But before we start the build, I'm just going to catch up with chat because I'm conscious I've been talking for about 10 minutes, so there's probably a lot happened. Okay, so where did we get to? Yes, the Zeal stabs joke from Fax. Ahab says, down with the dirty Canadian switch vendor. Oof, there we go. He's ruined our fair server. Siva says, Top Clack, what's the best type of case in terms of sound? Trying to go as silent as possible. If you want a silent case, personally, I think aluminium dampens the sound best for a silent switch. If you use polycarbonate, I think that accentuates sound rather than doing anything else. It does dampen it in a way, but it also helps you pick up on a lot of pitch and timbrance that are in the switch noise that's not usually there, and I feel that that's wasted if you're going to use a silent switch. So I would just go straight for a basic aluminium case for whatever board you're building. Nebulant with 1,000 bits saying Jay is bang. Oh, thanks dude, I appreciate that, man. Soren says he's managed to finish eating on time. Querdenker says, facts, the joke would have been better if you'd said EBBT seal sabs. Oof. Now, guys, now. Rope's here as well. Good evening, Rope. And Bledin, good afternoon, sir. And Pluto DNL says, in low price, I thought it was expensive. Given the price of some of the boards that we've built on the stream before, this is what I would class as a relatively inexpensive starter board for the hobby. That being said, I appreciate it's not cheap when you compare it to what you can get from Razer or some of the other vendors and things like that. So I appreciate it. It is an expensive board, but it's very much at the low end of the hobby. That being said, I really like this board. I love the previous one that I built that Nebulant has, and I'm really looking forward to having one of my own back in stock again. Pokemon Kid says, when are manufacturers going to start putting the reset button under the space bar? Much better position. Absolutely, that's where it is on the JO1. I'm not a vendor, but that's where it is on my board. All relative in this hobby when you can easily pay £600 or $600 for a board, case and PCB. As you say, quote unquote, it absolutely is like that. Yeah, Cypher as well, which we talked about earlier on, which is just on my shelf here out of view. That also has the reset button under spacebar. I thought I bought something expensive, but it's fine. All people told me it was a good keyboard. It is a really good keyboard, especially for the money. You're going to love this, and I'm really going to enjoy building it. So do not worry in that sense. It's just in terms of this scale of hobby, there is the low end where keyboard fans kind of help get hobbyists off the ground. And then there's the upper end where people make their own custom keyboards, like I did the JO1, which is incredibly expensive. And then there's the super niche where people pay, you know, $10,000 for an OTD board, you know, and that does happen. That has happened. So, so there we go. I'm really sorry. I'm trying to catch up on chat. There's so much. Nebula says that carbon fiber place is night for that. It's going to be really good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to building my KBD67. I keep pestering Way about when this chocolate one's going to arrive. It hasn't arrived as yet. If you want the files for it, yes, just ping me. I'll let you know. Where are you getting the carbon fibre plates cut? Ping Max West Foxtrot or Cable Car Designs. He helps me out with all of my carbon fibre needs. Also 159 if you're in the USA, 159 on the Top Clack Discord server is sorting things out like that as well. So do keep doing that. I have just seen your latest comment. I'll just stop reading if I can't catch up. They're just white, just ordered them to have in case you want to use them. Yeah, that's fine. We'll put them on the board. If you want to use them, you can use them. If you don't have to. We may not have to test them because I won't know the command for it, and I'll be programming this board offline. So if they don't work immediately, I will get them working afterwards. Pre-lubed stream. I never lube on the stream because people find it boring. So I might do at most 5 switches on stream, but I never do a full rack of them. What's that 75% to the top left? This isn't a 75%, this is the J01. This is my custom keyboard, but it's not a 75%. There we go. If anyone is interested in that, I am about to run a really limited group buy for the second round of prototypes for that board. So if you are, just PM me on Discord and I will put you into the keyboard server and I'll invite you into that and you can have a look at it and the prices and everything else. But I warn you, it is not cheap because it's a 10 spot group buy for a prototype board that I own for only one of, and there's been some changes. It's not cheap at all, so just bear that in mind. Razer stuff is overpriced. Yeah, mentions Razer and not Leopold. Personally prefer Leopold to Razer. Maybe the next one will be more expensive. Well, if you ever want to know what group buy to join DNL, just ping me. If you're thinking of considering something, I'll tell you whether it's good or not. He thought of a break condition. Yeah, absolutely. I'll just stop reading them. And then Nebulent says, don't build the JO, don't chill the JO1. Too many people already. Yeah, well, maybe if we do 15, it might be better. And Try Zero G says, yeah, just ping me if you want more info on the JO1. Just ping me offline, Try Zero, and you can have a look at that. Is Geo actually getting a JO1 at Top Clack? Geo is the only one who is guaranteed to get a JO1 in the 10 spot group buy because he's been such a big help with the board and offering feedback and a few of the bits and pieces in the background. So Geo is absolutely getting one. Yes, he's in that. Even if I only buy one because I can't find another 9 people, Geo will be getting one. Querdenker's banned because he'll just delay the group buy, so we're just going to ban Querdenker. Okay, right. Stop, the JO1 is already subscribed. Right, we're not here to talk about the JO1. We're here to talk about the KBD67. So what we're going to do then is we're going to start the build. So we are going to look at the stabilizers first. Now, as I mentioned, in terms of layout, we do want full backspace on this board. We want ISO enter or ISO enter, and then we're also going to go with a 6.25U spacebar, which means we need 3 stabilizers for this build, 2 2U and 1 6.25, and we have all of the preparations ready here. First thing I'm going to do is make sure we've got all of the parts we need. So as you can see, we've got 3 wires, 2 2U ones, and then we've got 6 housings, slider housings, and then we've got 6 sliders as well. So I'm just going to pop these by everything. In terms of what we're going to do to the sliders, I'm going to try and show you this. I know this camera doesn't always focus well, but you can see on the bottom here there's 4 legs. What we are going to do is we're going to cut off this leg on this side, and we're also going to cut off this leg on this side. And if I show you a side profile view, I can show you for one. The reason for that is you can see that this leg in the back corner here is very, very flimsy, and it adds to mushiness on the bottom out. And this leg on the front corner as well does exactly the same. It's very flexible and it just ruins the bottom out feel. So we're going to take both of those off, and that's as simple as just taking some flush cutters, snipping one side, snipping the other side, and then what you can see here is that we have taken off 2 of those legs, so there's now only 2 legs on there. And at the same time, what we've also done is cut them at an angle so the bottom is completely flush. So you can see there that the vertical view on this side is completely flush. If we look at an unclipped one, you can kind of see that the legs stand off that base a little bit. They're kind of not flush to it, they kind of stepped out, so they kind of come out and then down. So we're just making sure that they're all flush. So we're going to repeat that across the remainder of these sliders. And this is a really, really quick job. Okay. 4, and then we're going to do the last 2. Okay, and last one here. Just catching up. Jay, you were the chosen one. Nah, I'd buy if I had the funds. Gio's kind enough for the JO when he's earned it. Yeah, friendship with Jay has ended. Now Zeal is my best friend. Oh, that makes me sad. Pusher says, "Hey, is this a safe, not a Zeal Link stream?" Zeal sponsors Top Clack, but it's a Zeal free stream at the moment, unless Zeal decides to show up later on and try and beat Talisman Solutions 7,999 bits compared to Zeal's 7,777. Sorry, 77,777 and 79,999. Ali Newman and polycarbonation. Is that one of those British prince and princesses that you got over there on the big side of the pond? Yeah, aluminum and polycarbonate. How about that? That's my terrible American accent for you. I'm not going to ever do that again. Zeal's taking over everything. Oh my god. Hey, it's better than any of yours British accents, which I can do quite well actually. And Talisman Solutions donates another 1,111 bits. Thank you, thank you. I'm going to assume that that one was for the accent and not for the content. So there we go. So that's all of those clipped. Now what we're going to do is on the front of these housings you've got 2 holes, and on the rear of them you've got a single hole. We're going to take the 2 holes and we're going to put them to the front of the housing itself. Sorry, the slider before. The front of the housing is where the wire clips in. So you can just see that clip just here at the front. So there we go. So we're going to put the 2 holes facing that side. So we're going to pop it in just like so. We're then going to take our wire. We're going to push it into the bottom hole, and then we're going to clip it into the front. And then you can see that all works nicely. We're going to repeat that on the other side, and then we're going to repeat it for the 2 2U ones as well. And then once we've done that, we're going to lube these, and we're going to remove all of that horrible rattle. Okay, making some good progress here now, guys. I'm conscious that it's going to take me some time to do the LEDs on this build as well, so I want to try and get there as fast as possible. Considering I don't usually do LEDs, I'm probably a little bit out of practice with them. But the plan on those is to do one leg of each one first, just get them tacked in, and then I can level them all up afterwards, and then do the second legs after. Okay, so that's all of those built up. All of those are moving nicely. The next thing to do is move on to lubing them. So as always, I just use dielectric grease, silicone grease. We're going to put a small amount into the cap, just like so. And then we're going to take our lube brush, and I'm going to take just a tiny little amount on the brush for this part. And what we're going to do is just brush the sides. So just try and make it so you can see. We're just going to brush one side of the slider here. We're then going to turn it over and brush the other side of the slider. Now there's not much lube on here, so we're going to do the other side at the same time before I get any more lube on there. And then we're going to come over on this side. Now the next thing we're going to do is stop the internal rattle of the wire. We're going to take a blob on the end of the brush. You want to be able to see a blob. We're going to push that into the back, and then we're going to push that all around with the brush. We're going to repeat that on the other side. Again, a blob on the end of the brush, push that into the hole all around the wire. We're going to turn around. We're going to come and do the same thing up the front. So you're going to follow the wire up into the stabilizer housing, and then you're going to just paint the wire as you come down. And then we're going to do the same on the other side. Blob on the brush, follow the wire up into the housing, making sure it spreads nice and evenly, and then paint the wire as we come out just wherever anything touches plastic. The last thing we're going to do is turn it over, take a grain of rice sized piece, and then we're just going to push it along the bottom of the stabilizer just like so. And then again, a rice sized piece just on here. I'm just going to brush it on there as well, and that's one done. I'm going to repeat that for the rest, so we've got enough lube on the brush to just do the side of the sliders. Okay, blob into the back, blob into the front, all the way up, inside, spread it around as much as you can, and then down the wire. Turn it over, size about a grain of rice, and then just going to pop that on the bottom. And then we're going to repeat on the other side, and making sure we're just doing a nice even lube job. Always try and add just a little bit of lube, don't add too much. It's easy to add more lube if things aren't right than it is to take it away. So always make sure you you go easy on the lube if it's your first time. If you get used to it, you can start to really work out how much you want to add directly. Okay, and turn that over. There we go. We're going to do the last one. Try and catch up with chat. Perfect American accents. Thank you very much. Zeely's not taking over my stream. Oof, sorry, I still need to catch one of your streams. I don't think I've ever caught one. Do just drop me a ping when you're going to stream, because I really would like to catch one of your streams. Okay. We're going to go up to the front. There we go. And then on the underside. And then last side here. Lubing once already inside. What? Yeah, I prefer to do it this way. There are multiple ways of doing this. No way is right, no way is wrong. If you're happy with your results, then you stick to how you do it, dude. There is no right or wrong way with stuff like this. It's all about the end result, and there's multiple ways of getting there. I personally find that if you lube the wire before you insert it, you end up scraping a lot of the lube off, and you end up having to do this anyway. So I just prefer to do it this way and not risk missing a trick. But again, as I say, there's no right or wrong way. There we go. So that's those loops. Just going to move that to one side. Talisman Solutions donated 1 bit as well to make it 81,111. Thank you, dude. Thank you very much for that. DNL says, see, I just bought LEDs for you to get some practice. Excellent, thank you. P for Fuh says, Heart KBD67. He's a really good board for the price it is. Is this some new lubing technique you've not seen before? Clearly you've never watched one of my streams before, Amir. You should be watching them. Been waiting for a J build of this as well. Nice, nice. Just 7 more of your donations, and we have a really nice top 3 donations amount. Oh yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. Good point. Maybe people can link me some nice keycaps on Discord at the Top Clack Discord. I haven't found something yet. I'm waiting for the Modern Dolch. Modern Dolch is coming. I can't wait to do it. We are going to be using some of my keycaps on this build today. We're going to be going with GMK Sky Dolch, which will just sit nicely with this nice grey colour. This Samurai Champloo remix beat though, I don't even know what this is. I usually just put that lo-fi shit on, but this was the first one that was up, so I just popped this on. Only problem is that you need to stop after that. Well, we can always figure out a new target for Talisman. We can always figure out a new one. White and black would look really nice on the grey board. It's on Mashdrop for a decent price in stock. It is, but it only supports basic ISO. It does not give you the full-on German ISO that DNL wants, unless he buys ISO Returns adapter pack, which is also for sale on mykeyboard.eu at €60. This is interesting. I'll have to try this kind of stab lubing, and yeah, sorry for build streams I can't catch live. Usually I just skip lubing parts. Oh, this is ISO build. My bad. Yeah, it is. It is. It's for a German friend of mine, DNL. So that's what we're going to be doing. The next thing to do now is to pop the stabilizers into the board. So as I said before, we are going with a full backspace. So that's one side in, and that's the second side in. So that's the stabilizer backspace in place. But then you're going to pop the one in for ISO enter. That's one side in, and then we're going to put the second side in just now. There we go. And then the last thing we're going to do is put the 6.25U spacebar in. Now, I don't think this is noted on the bottom, so I think what we might have to do here is work it out with some switches and keycaps before we make a start. So I'm just going to grab the 6.25U spacebar, and then I'm going to try and grab 3 1.25U keys, just so we can work out what that looks like. I'll try not to tip these everywhere. I'm going to have to tip them out, I think. And the only real reason I'm doing this is because this bottom row is quite hectic. And there's a lot of options for the bottom row, so I want to make sure that we get this one right. It's not like a lot of boards where you've only got 2 or 3 bottom row options. This one has maybe 15 options, so just want to make sure it's spot on before we start to get the plate in place and some switches. Okay. Okay, so we just grab the plate, and I'm just going to loosely lay this across the top, and then we're just going to grab 4 switches and just pop them into the bottom of these keycaps. So 1, 2, and 3. Now I know that these are the wrong legends, but guys, this is just to make sure we've got it in the right place. So we know that the plate sits like so. We know we've got 1 and 2 and 3. So we know that the space bar needs to budge up against that there. So that means that we want to use this space bar mounting position. So now we've worked that out, what we'll do is just pop that in place. Now these are clip-ins, so they're easy to remove if we've got this in the wrong position, but only before we start soldering. So now we've got that in place, what we'll do is we'll relay this over the top. That fits nice and neatly. Pop the switch in the base of there. We can see that that lines up nicely there, and then we can see that we've got space for the 3 1.25U keys there, and then also space for 2 1.25U keys at the opposite side as well. So that's all of that in place and in position. Put those to one side now. So we know that everything there is in the right areas. Talisman Solution has gifted a tier 1 sub to Amir as well. That's 110 gift subs. Thank you so much, dude. We genuinely appreciate that. Jay, how did you close your calorie ring without any exercise ring showing? Magic. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea, but you're right, it has done. Let's have a look, shall we? Let's have a look. I can't believe I'm showing this on stream. That's because it's a Sunday, so I have it set to 360 calories, which means I have to do a very, very little. So there we go. There we go. Very little. Is this the Amir from GMK9? Yes, it is. Yes, I believe so. What do you think of the Zeal PC acquisition of the Discord server? I think it's an April Fool's. That's what I think. But I think it's a good one. I do think it's a good one. Okay. So now we've got the board all ready. The next step is for us to put the switches in place. What we're going to do is push these into the plate and into the PCB at the same time. Now these switches are plate mount switches, they're not PCB mount, so there is a chance that the PCB won't hold once we've got the switches in the plate, and I'll be able to push it on afterwards separately if we need to. But it's usually a wise idea to try and line everything up in the plate and in the PCB all together. That way you just know you're going right, you're not going to bend any pins or anything like that. And then once we've got these switches in place, what we'll do is we will solder in the corners, and then we'll work our way from there. There we go. So these switches fit nice and neatly in this plate. There's nothing tight about them. As I say, we're not using PCB mount switches, we are using plate mount switches, which means that when we flip this over to solder it, we'll have to put some pressure down to make sure the first ones we solder are in the right place and that they're fully flush with the PCB. So you can see here, if I let go, it does move the switches away from the PCB. So we just need to make sure that we're putting pressure on that base when we start to do all the soldering. Now there's no heavier spacebar on this build at all. All of the switches are the same. These are stock Gateron yellow switches. They have been lubed, as I say, with Krytox grade 205 grade 0 on the stems and Krytox 106 on the springs. We'll come back to the spacebar switch in a moment. So basically what we're doing here is just making sure that the switches are sat in the plate correctly and then moving into the PCB. We'll just work our way through these. Now, as I said before, we are using full backspace. We're not using split backspace on this build. And we'll just work our way across here. These switches don't fully clip in. They're pretty sturdy, but then there's a little bit of movement in the plate. I think the carbon fibre plate I've got for my build is a little bit tighter. I'm getting really warm in here, so I'm going to have to take my jumper off actually. The GAT yellow stems are a pleasant colour. They're a lovely shade of yellow actually. They are a really nice shade of yellow, I agree. Okay. That one doesn't want to quite go in. We'll come back to that one, maybe have to give it a... Oh, the housing wasn't fully flushed back together, that's why. Okay. Sometimes on some builds this can be really difficult, especially if you're doing panda builds as Querdenker knows. These can be really tight to push in, but on this build we are doing just fine. That one doesn't want to go in. The housing is not flush. There we go. And then we'll do the spacebar in a second as well. I'll get the spacebar back out, so we're making sure we're using the centered spacebar key. We are doing split left shift here, which means that we need 2 switches in there, just like so. And then we're doing full caps lock, not stepped, which I tend to do stepped on my personal builds, but doing full caps lock on this one. Okay. One doesn't want to go in. There we go. Okay, so that's all of the switches in the plate for the majority of the keys. I'm just going to pop the ISO enter one in there. That is quite loose, is that one, so we may have to wedge it in to solder it. And then we're going to put that one in there as well. That one may stay in, it may come out. And then we're just going to, as I say, work out from the spacebar where that needs to be. Okay, so it just needs to be nice and flush just there. Just check that's in the right place. And that all lines up. If you guys can see, everything looks nice and neat and tidy on the lines on that one. Couple of switches spare. Always good to have some spares just in case one of the switches doesn't work or needs a little bit of more lube, or you have a bent pin or anything like that. See, this one's falling out at the bottom just there. There we go. That's all right. That one as well doesn't want to stay in place. Some of these switches being pushed out. So we're going to flip that over. I'm going to make sure everything looks like it's in position. Everything does look like it's all right. We are going to have to say, as I say, press down to tack some of these in, just to make sure we're getting them nice and flush, because they do drop away from the, they drop down and out as we turn it upside down. Or single plates. Yes, single plates are really tight. Today I did an experiment using RO59 for bad lubing springs. Am I stupid for doing this? Or for bag lubing? No, RO59 is alright. It's one that needs a couple of layers. You can't just put one layer on, especially on springs. I think it needs 2 or 3. I would apply it. I don't like bag lubing personally, but I would apply it, I would let it dry, and then I would reapply again, and then try them and see if that removes the ping. If it doesn't, I would just ultrasonically clean them and use something like Crytox 106 or 104. Yeah, I agree, Talisman. Sorry, Quadenka, I would not want to build another Singer with pandas or some houses because that is really a thumb killer. Yeah, there we go. So excellent. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're not going to try and do the ISO enter and things like that. What we're going to do is we're just going to tag in some around the board and then from the middle as well. Just grab my soldering iron. Move those keycaps out of the way. And just while that's heating it up, I'm going to get my solder reel. And then, as I say, what we're going to do is we're going to push the board down where we want to make sure we're soldering correctly. This is the first one. We're just going to tag that in place. That's 1. And that's 2. I'm going to push down this top corner, and again, just tag these switches in place. I'm going to come over to this far side. Again, we're going to push down as we solder. Let it flow down onto the switch. Once you've got one in, you can kind of let go a little bit. Again, just down this bottom corner. Now this is one that's got some degree of flexibility to its position because of all of the mount points. So we're just going to tack that in first, and then we're just going to solder up the other side. And then what we're going to do, just to make sure we've got as many flush as possible, we're going to push down in the middle of the board, and we're going to solder here. And then we're going to do another one here, and then just one here and here as well. Now, just before we do any more soldering, one of the things I am going to show you that I do on these types of builds is where we know that the there is a lot of movement because the switch isn't held in the plate correctly. So around the ISO enter, for example, you can see that that switch moves a lot. There's a lot of movement to it, and the backspace. What we're going to do is we're just going to tag one leg, and then we're going to get it straight, and then we're going to solder the second leg in as well. Gideon as well, and Glue. Oh, Glue's here as well. Hey man, good to see you, dude. So we're just going to move all around now. Any that have got some significant movement, as I say, so these two switches here have got a fair amount of movement, so we want to make sure they're straight. The enter key, the backspace key, and the space bar, we're just going to make sure we tag just one leg of those to begin with, and then we'll go from there. Make sure it's straight and solder the other leg when we've got some keycaps on the board. Want to make sure I can even get the ISO enter key to stay in. As I say, these are PCB mount switches, sorry, plate mount switches, not PCB ones, which is making them harder to get in place. We're just going to tag that one leg in there. We're going to do the same for the backspace, and then we're just going to come down and do one of the spacebar legs as well. And then we're just going to come over here and the split left shift, which is just down here. We're just going to tag each of these legs in once as well, and then we're going to put those keycaps on just to make sure that everything is looking nice and neat and tidy before we do the second legs on them. Okay, because this is the only chance we've got to get these switches nice and straight and level. So we're going to grab some keycaps. In fact, we may as well put these out ready after we've soldered. We're going to pop the backspace keycap on. We're going to bob an ISO enter keycap on. I'm going to pop the spacebar on. And then these won't be the right key, or just by sheer chance that is one of the right keys there. Given the fact the other ones are right, we'll try and find that shift key. Is that it there? No. It is in here somewhere. There it is. I'm going to pop those on. What we're going to do now is just have a look at these and make sure that they're level. The backspace is looking nice and flush, as is the ISO enter. Spacebar is looking nice and flush, as you can see, guys. It's nice and straight and square. There's no issues there. Just going to check these two keys over here. That one needs a slight twist in it. Shift key, nice. So this one is just slightly off. A little bit of a manual twist has put it back into the right position. So we just need to now go through and solder those in the current positions that they're in. And then we can remove the keycaps and carry on with the rest of the build, knowing that we've got the difficult keys all nice and neat and straight, and not having to worry about coming back to soldering these switches again and missing them. Okay, there we go. That's all those soldered nice and neatly in place. We know that those are straight now. They're not going to have any issues with bending or moving out of position. There we go. Okay, so the next thing to do is just solder the rest of the board. We know that all of these are now nice and flush. The plate's held in place. Nothing's moving around. As you can see, all of the switches are nice and flush down the sides. The plate's holding them in place nicely, and the switches that are soldered to the board are soldered nice and flush as well. Tyler Denton said, is that the Seed soldering iron? It's the TS100, which the Seed has rebranded. So it is the same soldering iron, they've just rebranded it the Seed. It's one of those things that happens with a lot of those companies. Just got back from food. Those kind of look like Tai-Hao keycaps. These are GMK Sky Dolch, full-on double-shot GMK keycaps. These are not Tai-Hao keycaps. Okay, so the plan now is to just go around and solder all of the switches going row by row. So as always, guys, this is the boring part of the stream. I have noticed that Nathan Kim has now decided to use this part of his stream to talk about his sponsors. We give our sponsor slots on the main Top Clack show, although we are potentially looking at having sponsored build streams with some other partners. That might be something that comes in the future. I know we have had my Zephyr build stream for my wife. That was sponsored by Zeal, was that particular one. But that's the only one we've ever had so far. But it might be something we look at doing going forward as well. Okay. Okay guys, so this is almost this first row done. Just bleeding a little bit of solder on that one. Just making our way across the row. Once we're done, we'll start moving down the board. Take us a few minutes to solder the whole thing, but it should be a nice, easy soldering board. Okay, this is the top row, so we're getting to where the backspace is now, so that would have been the plus key, and we've already done the backspace key and the previous key in that corner to hold everything together nice and neatly. So now we're going to come back across the next row. Jump a little bit because we've got ISO enter on this board, so this jumps us straight into the back bracket keys. Always making sure that we've got both pins showing through, that there's no bent pins. Before I solder a switch, check both pins are visible. The last thing we want to do is solder a switch with a bent pin, because then we'll have to desolder it and go through all of that troubleshooting as well. Okay. Making good progress here, guys. Just going to give the soldering iron a clean. Okay. So almost across the length of the QWERTY row now. And then once we've done that, we can move down onto the home row. Okay. That's the Q key, and then we're just going to move on to the tab. Okay, let's catch up with chat and see what we're talking around. Just seen similar tie-how sets earlier. Yeah, I do have some tie-how sets, but that's long. I know this has been asked before, but what iron do you use, Jay? I think my dinky $10 boy needs an upgrade. This is the TS100. It's a really, really good iron. It's cheap, plentiful, easy to find. I got this one from Amazon UK, but you can get them from Taobao and AliExpress and Amazon US. So it's available in all good retailers, to be honest. Any way you expect to get your electronics. I think Radio Shack in the US sell them, if they're still going. They used to do, but it is a really good iron. It's USB firmware, so you can upgrade the firmware, have finer control over the temperature settings. It heats up instantly. It's not one that you need to wait for it to heat up. It's just super quick. And it's just really nice and easy to change the tips as well. I've got multiple tips depending on what work I'm doing. For this particular board, we're using the standard TSB2 tip. But if I'm doing things like SMD soldering work, which Pingu is doing on his stream earlier on, I'll tend to use one of the needle nose tips or one of the chisel tips. I used to use the chisel tips for LEDs, but I don't have a good clean chisel tip at the minute, so we'll be just using the standard round one for today. Okay. Okay, just over halfway through the keyboard now. 2 more rows left to do. The last row being the spacebar row, which means there's a fewer switches on there. So we'll try and do both of these rows together. And that should make it go a little bit quicker. That one's already been done. I'm going to jump across to here. These are the arrow keys we're doing at the moment. And there we go. And this is the right arrow key. As I say, we're just going to try and do both of these rows together. Just wait for the solder to flow through. There we go. Switch just here. There we go. Jumping across to the next one. Soldering iron again, and then come back up onto this row. I'm just going to quickly do these keys, and then we'll be dropping back down next time for the space bar on the bottom row. And then we can go ahead and test the PCB, make sure everything's working. Now, I did test the PCB outside of the case prior to the stream. Everything was working just fine, so we just need to double check that that's the case. Now we know we've already soldered the spacebar because we did that previously when we were aligning the keycap. I'm just going to move along this row now. And then once we get past the spacebar, we'll drop back down for the modifier keys on the spacebar row as we get to them. So here's one. These are the three 1.25U keys that go to the left of the spacebar. And then we're just moving up to the split left shift, which has already been done. So we're going to drop down. We've got this one to do, and that's our last switch because we've already done the corners. So there we go. We'll leave the soldering iron on just in case we need to reflow any of these or anything like that, but that should be good. The ice is nice as it looks like you're using barely any solder at all. You don't need much. It's a tiny bit. Let me show you in a second, guys. Let me get this up close. So you can see, oh gosh, if I don't drop it, apologies for the noise there. So you can see here that if it decides to focus, it might be easy to show you in here. The amount of solder I use is just enough to get a tear-shaped drop. If that's going to focus. It's not going to focus. You might be able to see it on here if it decides to look. So it's just enough for a tear-shaped drop. Yeah, I scratched my finger, it's alright. Nothing damaged on there. Apologies for the noise. So there we go. Not a happy time for your ears. I'm really sorry. I do apologise about that. It just slipped out of my hands. It's really, really warm in my office at the minute. But there we go. That's all nice and neatly soldered. All the switches we know are nice and level. Everything looks like it's working just fine. We're going to plug the board in and we'll get up switch hitter so we can show you how that's working. You should be able to see that on stream now. So let me just pop this to one side so I can still see what I'm doing. Now, as I said before, this is USB-C, so I do have a cable just here that we can use. And there we go, we can see that the underglow is all nice and working as well. It's nice and bright. Just move it there so you can see all working nice and brightly. And then what we're going to do is just work through the keys, make sure that everything works. Now these keys will be reprogrammed later on. So we know all those work, we know the enter works and the backspace key. Now we're just going to go row by row, making sure everything lights up. And then we'll program the right hand column keys off stream depending on what features DNL wants on them. Okay, everything working so far. That one key won't work at the moment, so this is, apologies, you probably can't see that. This is the ISO backslash key that will need programming in. That's FN, so that's why that's not working. We'll test that in a second space, and those are working as well. So FN, and we'll just try something that might give us a different result. Okay, this might come up as delete. There we go. So there we go. So we know the FN key works. I hold that, and then I tap backspace, and it gives us delete. So there we go. So we know that the FN key works as well. So everything's working on the board apart from this key here. That's probably because it's an ISO key and it's not programmed in the layer. We'll fix that afterwards. I think that's going to be fine. I don't think there's going to be any issues with that at all. That means we can get rid of the soldering iron. We know that all the soldering is now done, and we can move that to one side. Let's move that out of the way. We'll come back and we'll do the LEDs shortly. What I want to do now is just make sure everything works once it's inside the case. If it does, then we'll bring it back out and we'll solder it outside of the case. So we're going to pop it back into the case now. And this is really easily done. So we know that the USB is in the top corner. We have to slide it in at an angle. So I don't know if you guys saw that then. Effectively what I'm doing is I'm tucking the back edge of the board down, and I'm just aligning the mounting pins underneath, pushing until it slides the USB into place. And then we can see that the USB is now nicely in place. We're just going to tack this down with a couple of screws. KBD fans do give us a ton of screws to do this with, and a particular size Allen key. Just going to tack this down with 2 for now, and then build the board with the top case on, and just make sure that everything aligns and fits. That doesn't want to go in, not sure why. Let's have a look. There we go. Just slightly cross-threaded there. That should be alright now. Might just see if I can get a little hex screwdriver in these to turn them a little bit easier than using the Allen key. There we go, that should turn. There we go. Just come down to the bottom of the board and do the next one. And then, as I say, we're just going to literally hold the board together. Making sure it all fits nice and neatly together. We'll test the board again, just make sure that nothing is not working, and then we'll come back and we'll start on the LEDs. Just want to make sure we've not got any issues with any of the keys shorting out. So it looks like everything we're hitting is working just fine. I know I'm just mashing the keys here, but we get the point. We can see that everything aligns up. Yeah, everything's looking good. No shorts there. We know that that one key isn't working. We'll come back to it. Okay. Okay, so that looks like everything is working. We know that there's nothing shorting across the case. That means that we are good to carry on with the build, and we're now going to put our LEDs into it. Remove these two screws. Can't quite get enough grip on that, so I'm just going to. Oh gosh, this one is really, really tight. There we go. This isn't a board we want to be taking apart and putting back together too much, because those screws will strip. I might actually change those for some of the screws I've got at the side of me later on before we put the board back together fully. If you put the LEDs in and anything stops working when it's here, do I have to unsolder the LEDs too? No, everything will be fine. You won't have any issues. You need to sacrifice at least one finger per stream in order to satisfy the keyboard god. Choose your poison: cut, burn, scrape, bruise, or crush. I actually did scrape my finger when I dropped the keyboard earlier on. Hold on, you probably can't see that because the switch is just there. Nice little scrape. It's probably not going to show up. There you go. I can't see it, but I did scrape it there. So. We have done the scrape. How about the viewer's ears? All right, Pashimaniac. I'm sorry, I apologise. Okay, so now we know that the board is fully working. We are going to go ahead and pop in the LEDs. Now the way that I'm going to do this is I'm just going to pop them in one at a time. And I'm going to solder just one leg. Now, on an LED, you've got two legs. One is longer than the other. The long leg is the positive, and if we turn the PCB over, what you'll be able to see, if my camera would focus, is there's a little tiny plus just above my finger on the left of the two holes for the LEDs. So that means that the longer leg wants to go through that one where the plus sign is. So most boards, that's consistent across the entirety of the board. Some boards it's not. So what we're going to do is we're just going to insert the LED. We're not going to worry too much about it being level or anything like that. I'm just going to show you how we're going to do this actually. All we're going to do is just pull it up, make sure it's nice and tight. We're going to get our solder reel back out. We're going to heat up the soldering iron. As you can see it heats up really quickly, so you can see that just jumping through the degrees there. And so it gets to about 320-ish degrees, which is probably the best for this solder. There we go. And all we're going to do is just going to tack one leg into place. And the reason we're going to do that, he says, there we go, is because now that's soldered in place. If that's not right when I come back to it later on, what I can do, so if that wasn't in fully, I could heat that pad up, I could push it around, I could line up the LED, I could move it into any position I wanted to, and then I could just, you know, reflow that solder and it would be fine. And then once I've done that, I can then go back and resolder the other legs, clip them all, and then nice and easily done. So that's how we're going to do it. We're going to pop in a whole row of LEDs at a time. Making sure that we get the legs in the correct orientation. This is probably going to take us some time, so I do apologise in advance. These aren't always the easiest thing to get into position. So we're just going to literally pop them in like so. And again, it doesn't matter if these drop or move or anything like that, because we are going to go around and heat them up before we solder the second legs. I'm just going to check that those are in the correct place. So I'm making sure that the longer leg is where the plus is. Oops. And just work our way along the edge of the board. As I say, I very rarely solder these on stream. So this is a very rare occurrence. Personally, I'm not a fan of LEDs in boards. That's my fault. The feeling, knowing you could have been about done by now, but here comes the LEDs. I hate them with a passion. Let's not get into desoldering them. Yeah, I'm not a fan of LEDs, but the owner of the board asked for them. Therefore, if he wants them, it's his board. He can have whatever he likes. So I am holding the board up off of the desk just so that I can get the LED legs in. Then when we turn it upside down, as I say, it doesn't matter if these move around at all. We can realign them and reposition them before we solder the second legs in place. And then once done, we will retest the board, we'll cap it, and then we will go from there. But this is where it's going to take most of the time, I think, of this build. So I think we're about an hour and 20 minutes in. This is probably going to take another 40 minutes just to get the LEDs done. Okay. So then what we're going to do is put that on top, flip them over. You'll see that some of those did drop. These keycaps out of the way. So these are all in sorts of different positions. So the trick here is that we're going to pull it up and touch solder at the same time on each leg. We're just going to go left to right. So we're going to pull up, just touching solder. Just like so. And then we're going to let it cool. And then again, pull them up. This is why most people don't use LEDs in the hobby DNL, because they are so fiddly to do. As I say, it doesn't really matter too much where the LED is based. We're just going to tag it and then we'll pull them all up afterwards and reheat them. So I know that all of these aren't in position. We'll show you this afterwards actually. You'll see that these are all out of position, but we're going to just reflow them as we pull them into place. Okay. Okay. So what you can see here, guys, is, as I say, if I show you there, they're all not level, they're not even, they're not as deep as they need to be. If I show you from this side, you can see that some of the LEDs are sticking up, they're not in the right place. But what the beauty of this now is, this method is we can just go, we know the first two are in pretty much perfect position. We can then go to the third one, we can put pressure on it from the bottom, we can retake our soldering iron, we can just heat up that single pad, and as that heats up and flows through, then we can take that off, let go, and you can see that the LED is in the perfect position now. So what we're going to do is we're just going to literally jump through the rest of the board doing exactly that, waiting for the solder to melt. That one isn't quite going in yet. There we go. This is a bit of a finger killer, so I do apologise for anyone who doesn't enjoy doing this, but it is the easiest method. I'm conscious I'm doing this off stream, sorry guys. Just pushing them through, letting the solder reflow. There we go. I'm just pushing through from the base, reheating that. You can see that the LED wiggles as I move it into position. Let go, let the solder cool, and then we're in place and we're all nice and neat and tidy. Reflow the solder, push the LED through, let go, and it's all nice and neat and tidy. And we're just going to keep doing that across the length of the board. And then once all these are in position, we'll have a look and see if they need any final adjustments. If they don't, what we'll do is we'll go through and we'll just I'll try and do it from this angle. Actually, you might be able to see a bit better, guys. And then we'll just solder the second legs in, and then we'll clip them all afterwards, and then we'll move on to the next row. Okay, that one's lost all of its solder from when I reflowed it. Okay, I might need to just add a little bit more solder to this one. There we go. Just try that again. And we've just got a few more to do in this row. Okay, so we can take a look at this row from the other side, see how it looks, see whether all of those look nice and neat and tidy. You will see that this one here is out of place. All of the rest look nice and even. So we're just going to retry on this one here. Again, pressure from the bottom on the top of the LED. Reheat the pad. Push it, make sure it's nice and level and it feels nice and smooth. Let go. And then we can see that that one is now nice and flush and level. This one as well, just needs a slight tweak to it. There we go. And all of those are looking good. So now what we can do is we can quickly go through, tag all of the second legs on these. And then once we've done this, we can then clip them, and then we can move on to the next row. This is not the best soldering iron tip for these, but it will do the job. Okay. Almost there on this particular row. As you can see, the LEDs are far more complex to apply than the switches. There we go. And now what we can do is we can just go through, take our flush cutters and snip all of these nice and flush. Put these to one side. Once I've just clipped all of these, I'll have a catch up with chat, see where we've got to. See what you guys are talking about, see if you guys like my method for doing this, or if you hate it, or if you've got a better way. Again, I don't solder LEDs very often, so I apologise if I'm slow at it. And we're just making sure that these are nice and neat and flush to the PCB, or as close as we can get them. go, almost a full row done. I might need to just put a blob of solder on that one just there. Just going to quickly touch up that particular one. It appears the solder didn't quite have enough connection to the pad. There we go. And there we go. So next thing to do is just try and test this. Let's catch up with chat before we do. Oh gosh, lots has been going on in chat. Let's catch up. Wow. Okay. That was clearly payback on the sins you committed previous, perhaps even outside the QB venue. Maybe. The feeling knowing you could have been done about now, but here come the LEDs. Hate them with a passion. Yeah. You failed to spend the rent. Damn man, step away. I don't need that bad karma. Would you recommend the TS100 over other bigger soldering stations like the Hacko? Personally, yes. I don't do much other soldering apart from keyboards. This is perfectly fine for me. Time for me to pop out while you pop these in. Fun stream as always, Jay. Try not to get into my duration territory. I dare you. It might be with the LEDs. I would love to see you do an LED build, Quer. We all know how slow you are. I like to say it so the LEDs get brighter the faster I type. Yeah, I'm not a fan of them either way. Problem is I don't know if I want LEDs, but if it doesn't put them now, I can't decide if I want to use them. That's true. That's true. Yeah. Wonder if SIP sockets would be helpful. I hate SIP sockets with a passion. They're even more painful to do. LEDs do tamper with the sound a little bit. Yeah, they can do, but it's not enough to really worry about. Cyberstam with a subscription, 12 months. Thank you very much, dude. Appreciate that, man. Should have put the LEDs within the switches when lubing, then soldered both the switch and the LED one as one. I should have done that, yes, and they would have been in the housing, yes. That's very true. I predict a bright keyboard future for Pashmaniacs as Talisman. Yes, that sounds good. If I don't use them, it's fine, but if I want to use them and they're not there, I would be sad. Sorry for the work, Jay. It's fine. And Talisman Solutions gifts a tier 1 sub to Lubed Helios. That's 111 now. Thank you very much, dude. Thank you. You're a crazy man, dude. Awesome and generous. He is. He's super generous. £550 on subs. That's crazy. It is. Yeah, absolutely. Just about enough for his effort. Yeah. It's a hobby. It's supposed to compensate for doing everything else rationally. Absolutely. JexZ, there will be a typing test at the end. We just need to finish building it. What I am going to do is just see if we can get these LEDs working. Now, I don't know if they will come on automatically. Oh, they did flash. Let's see if we can work out what the code is for them. Oh gosh, I'm starting all sorts of programs going in the background. If anyone knows what the default KBD67 LED control is, let me know. Oh, there we go. There we go, you guys. You can see that those are now working. I don't know if that's showing up very well. I think it's too bright for the camera. But they are working. Again, that's not going to work. No, they are working. They're all working. So we know that that row is working just fine. And now as we plug it in, that should confirm as we go through the rows. So the next thing to do is move on and start to do the next row. Again, we're just going to push the LEDs in, hold it off the desk. Come on. There we go. That's one in. I'll try and be a bit fast this time, guys. Now you guys have seen my process, I shouldn't need to explain it too much. The other way to do this, of course, is to bend the pins, but I try not to do that because that can lead to a lot more problems when you're desoldering them. Well, usually the best way to desolder them is to heat the pads and pull the LEDs out with some pliers, and then desolder the pads once the LEDs removed. That's usually the easiest way to desolder these. In fact, you know what? I will show you the other method that is commonly used to do these by bending the pins. It should only take us a minute to do it. And if that seems to be faster, we'll use that for the rest of the board, to be honest. Okay. The trick here is to doing this blind whilst you can't see the holes. As Aniki says, there is another way of doing it where you put the the LEDs inside the switch housing. So the other way to do it is to pull up on the LED, make sure it's nice and tight and flush, bend over one leg, pin that down, then bend over the other leg. You can do it this way as well. And then if this fails to get something nice and level, you can use the previous method where you just tag one leg. But this does also make it more difficult to flush cut them afterwards. So as you can see, I'm just lifting these LEDs up, bending the legs so they're nice and flat against the board, holding the LED in place. But as I say, I prefer not to do it this way because it can sometimes mean a little bit more work to try and get them level and even. One for the ISO end just here. There we go. So then these are a little bit easier to solder, so again I would just do one leg at a time. So just flow down onto one pad if it wants to go. There we go. And then work your way through, just doing one pad on each LED. Okay. And then we can check afterwards how well these are straight. Quite often this leads to them not being straight and you have to do a little bit more playing around to get them straight, but we'll see how we get on. I say I very rarely solder these on boards, so this is a bit of an unusual stream for me. I think I've only ever done them on stream once. Oh gosh, there we go. So we can take a look at how neat these ones are. They're actually pretty good. I think we've done just about alright on all of those. None of them look out of place, so I'm happy to go in and solder the second leg on all of those. And then we can come back, clip these legs, test the keyboard again, make sure everything's working, and then we'll just do the last couple of rows. Having too much solder on your iron for these is a bit of a killer sometimes. So if you have got too much, if there's too much tinning on there, just remember to remove it. Okay. Okay, and then again, you can just flush cut these off. These tend not to be as neat because we've had to bend the pins, so it's sometimes easier to see an issue with them. We may have a small issue with that one. We may have just pulled a trace out, so we'll have a look at that in a minute. If we have, it's a relatively easy fix. Let's work our way through this. As I say, I think we'll go back to the original method because I much prefer that. and I think I've just damaged a trace, which has been the first time I've ever damaged a PCB on stream. But it is an easy fix if we have. Okay. When we plug this in, we should be able to see quite quickly if any of these don't work. I suspect one of them will work. I think I've just, as I say, pulled the trace out, so we'll double check it. We'll see how it's going. There's a couple I just want to really quickly touch up with solder. There we go. So I'm just going to touch a couple of these up really quickly with a dab of solder where I can see that there's been potentially some issues. Okay. Too much solder again. I'm just going to quickly whip through these. There we go. Just clean up this again. There we go. And there we go. Okay, let's try that. I think there's a couple on this row that won't work. So as I say, we're going back to the original method. So let's just see how we get on. Yeah, one here that doesn't work. So we'll have a look at that one in a second. All the rest are looking okay. There's just this one here, which is the one I believe that I'd lifted the trace on. So what I'm going to do is just run a tiny little bit of solder down where the trace would be. If we can get that to connect. No, so I'm just going to trim a leg, pop this in place, and then this should bridge the two connections. Okay. Gonna have to use some tweezers on this, I think. Okay. Okay, just retouch that with solder. Typical. Okay. This is slightly more filly than anything I usually do, so I do apologise, guys. Okay, there we go. I'm just going to neaten that up with these flush cutters. There we go. And we'll just give that a quick test. And that should light up that last one. There we go. And we can now see that's all lit up. Okay, there we go. So we're going to go back to the old method just for the last 3 rows, but we'll try and do all these as quickly as we can. So I'm going to try and get all of these last 3 rows done in one fell swoop and see how that goes. Looking good. It is, yeah, it is looking good. It's all going well. As I'm just trying to show people a couple of different ways of doing things, but obviously some ways are better than others. Some ways are faster, some ways are slower, some ways have more risks. You pay your money, you take your choice. I need to sub for that work. Looking good, yeah. Thanks, appreciate it, Saber Sam says that's a very cool attitude to have, dude. I feel fortunate I'm in the position to be generous, because truth is that's the best way to go through life if you can. Certainly something to work towards. Talisman, you are one of the most generous, nicest, kindest people I know within the community, and your help, support and appreciation goes an awful long way to keep Ryan and I doing what we're doing. So thank you very much for your continued support. Wishing for a closer view so I can see the precision of the tool work. Watching others builds patience in myself for that kind of thing. I really wish I had the type of camera that could do that. Sadly, I don't. Maybe I should try and invest in one, or see if I can convince Brian to let me invest in one with top clack funds. Because I really don't have the ability to do that. I can post some pictures online afterwards of the soldering. My soldering isn't the best, it's not the greatest, it's functional and it's neat, but I wouldn't say it's anywhere good as someone like Martin's or Pingu's or Wilbur's, for example. They're all absolute experts and masters. Okay, so that's this row done. All of the LEDs in place. Now I'm just going to flip that over. And then, as I said before, we have... Okay, that didn't work. They all fell out. Typical, because I wasn't quite level with them. Let's get these back in quickly. Apologies about that, guys. That was a silly, silly, silly error. But a poor workman blames his tool, so I won't blame that. I blame my own stupidity. Okay. Sometimes just getting these LEDs in place is really rather tricky. The holes are pretty tight and fine, but once you get them going, you're usually alright. There we go. The other thing to note as well is that whilst the orientation of your positive LEDs, the longer leg on the LEDs, may stay static across the width of a board, it may also change. So what's positive on one row may not be the positive side on another row. So just always bear that in mind, guys, and just double check it as you're soldering your pins in and making sure that they're in the right position. Okay, let's get ready to try that again. Okay, so that's there. Let's pop that on top, nice and tight. Flip that over, and yeah, we've missed one on this end, so I'm just going to try and level that up. No. Okay, pull it out. There we go. Okay, all of the rest are in. We're just missing one off this row. Okay. That's alright, we can come back to it and do it next time. So what I'm going to do again is just tag one leg of each of these in place. Doesn't matter how far in or out the position it is, we'll tighten that up afterwards. Okay. I'm just going to work our way down the board. Just doing the positive legs, always double checking that they're the longest leg and that they're posting through the board correctly. tagging them all into position. This is very much like welding, where you just tag something in first and then you can like readjust it and go from there. Okay, so those are all tagged in position. And then I'm going to start at one end by getting ready to push the LED from the underside. We're going to push it through, heat it up. Once it's in position, we're going to let it go and it'll cool down. And again, that's that one. Just working our way down the board. What we'll probably do is get all of these LEDs in the board actually before we solder the second legs. I think that might be a little bit faster. Okay. I'm just pushing the LEDs through from the bottom side. As soon as it's feeling like it's in correct position, I'm removing the soldering iron from the heat. And trusting that they're in the correct place. Any adjustments we can do afterwards. So we should be okay. Just a couple more to go. That's there. Oops. Always remember, don't let go of the LED on the underside until after you've removed the iron and it's clearly settled. Okay. Have a quick check of these, make sure they're all nice and neat and level. That one needs a bit of work. Everything else looks good. Just going to come back to this one. Spin the board around, gain access a little bit easier. Going to heat that solder back up, get it nice and neat and level. Okay, this one is decidedly frustrating me. Okay. That one does not want to go on the pad at all. Let's just see if we can do something a little bit different with this one. There we go. They should all now be nice and neat and tidy, and they are. Let's just give those a try, see if they're all working. Okay, so we've got two on here that aren't working, and the rest of them are, but we've only soldered one leg, so we should be alright. Just going to fix this one on the end. The ones that are working are the ones that have just got pressure on both legs against the sockets. Quickly grab that solder. Okay. There we go. That's those all in place and done. So that's that row in place. As I said, we'll go through the rest of the row and solder it, and then we'll clip them and move on to the next row. And then hopefully we'll be in a position to get through the rest of the board quite quickly. And I do apologise this build is taking so long, guys. As I say, soldering LEDs is not something I relish doing. But for a friend like DNL, it's absolutely worth it. Okay. Reflow him where I think it needs it. Okay, making the way across the board now. And last one, there we go. Just check these all work. This all row should be fine. Now we've soldered them. Caps lock on and off, that works. All the rest of the row is nice lit up. So there we go. Can now clip these. Then we're going to work our way across the next 2 rows. We'll try and do the next 2 rows together because there's very few to do on the spacebar row. So try and do those together, and then we can finally cap and sound test this board. And then, as I say, we will program it offline, just given the fact that we've got that one key that needs to be programmed from an ISO perspective. We'll do that offline, and we'll take it steady away from there. Well, I said it would take 40 minutes to solder all these. I think it's taken 30 so far, so my estimate might have been a little bit off. I apologise, guys. As I say, I don't usually solder LEDs, so I feel like I'm making excuses, but I'm really not. Right, okay, so let's just catch up. The previous method of micro illumination was worse. LEDs were a solution to a grain of rice incandescent bulbs of yore, which had even more annoying attributes of burning out and needing replacement. It's very true. New tip goal, new camera. Yeah. Let's get me a new camera. I'm a mere amateur compared to the other guys you listed. Pingu, you are excellent. I just watched your SMD sold in about 5 minutes a whole board, so don't lie. LEDs came into existence in the late 60s and once in the late 70s. They could be anything other than red, white, or green. Blue, I think, were the longest ones to develop. I think, if I remember rightly, actually, especially for bottom row where multiple switch positions close together. Yes, Anarchy, you are absolutely spot on. LEDs and keyboards are the most useless thing ever, otherwise LEDs best, as we say in Germany. Jack Static finally subbed. Thank you very much, dude. If I missed that, I'm so sorry. Did I miss that happening? If I did, I'm so sorry. I can't see it, but if I did, I'm really sorry, dude. But well done. Thank you for joining. Got a bounce. Best wishes and prayers for the fam. Stay up, brother. Thank you very much, dude. As a great Nathan Kim would say, preference. I mostly just want to say the legends in the dark, whether you choose by high contrast keycaps or by LED illumination, but I feel your pain when it comes to working with on a PCB for certain. I'm feeling so bad that he has so much work now. It's fine, dude, don't worry. I knew what I was getting into when you asked for this, so it's fine. My sub didn't show up either, sad face. Oh, I'm sorry, dude, but if you have subbed, I thank you very much. I'm not sure why it didn't show up. The widget is definitely running. I can see it on my screen here. But thank you very much, guys, for all of the subs and support. Let's crack on and get the LEDs put through for this last 2 rows. Just check the orientation of this hasn't changed. I'm going to try and do all of these at the same time. And then we'll just try and get the cover over the top for when we flip. And then we'll try and make sure we solder everything nice and neatly. As I say, we do have the one that we had to jump because we pulled the trace out. But that is the first time I've ever damaged a PCB on stream, and only the second time I've ever done anything like that. I've never burnt a pad or lifted a pad. I've only ever pulled one other trace, and that again was removing LEDs, not installing them. Unless, of course, you count ISO as damaging a PCB, which some people do. I do remember trying to sell a Zeal 60 PCB, and the buyer asked me what layout I'd had it configured in, and he refused to buy it because it had been desoldered and used as ISO layout previously. Okay, so almost getting there with the LED installation, and then, as I say, we'll just tag all these ones into position together. This bottom row where the space bar is often the hardest one to get all of the LEDs in the correct position. That's just because there's so many slots for LEDs, because there's so many slots for switches. Okay. I will just check that spacebar LED as well, because if there's ever a switch that's got an alternate orientation for the positive wire and the negative wire for the LED. It's around there if the whole row hasn't switched, so we shall double check that one as we get close to it. The last thing I want to do is have to desolder LEDs on stream, because I feel that would take me just as long as soldering them in place in the first place. Okay, last two to put in. Last one. There we go. Okay, so we can move those to one side. They're all in place. So we're just going to go through and tag them all now. Excuse me. So as I say, we're just going to tag the positive leg on each one. And then we'll push them all up from the underside once we know they're all stable and in place. And then we can go through and solder the second leg on each one, and then once done we can clip them. Just try and keep the PCB nice and neat and tidy. Okay. Sometimes trying to get in around all of the other LED legs that we've got in place is a little bit difficult, but we will persevere and manage. Okay. Okay, so that's all of the legs now tagged in, or one leg for each LED, so we should say. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through heat and push through the LED legs. Remove the soldering iron, let it cool down. And then, as I say, just slowly work our way through each of the LEDs. And then just make sure that we've got everything in the right position. We'll check these from the top side afterwards as well. I can now remember why I don't put LEDs in my personal builds very often. Partially because of looks, partially just because of the sheer amount of work that's needed to get them in place. Okay, once we've done these two rows, we'll just double check that everything is in the correct position. Then we'll go ahead and tag the second legs in for each one, and then we'll complete the build from there. Okay. turn the PCB around, make it a little bit easier to access. Okay. Almost there now, guys. For some reason this one doesn't want to go in. May have to try pulling this one through. Okay. And last one, last but not least. Okay, let's check and see how neat and tidy all of those are. So just go through each one. Just checking, make sure everything is nice and flush and even, and we're all good on those ones. So now we're just going to tack in the second leg on each one, and then we are done. Just catch up with chat, see what's going on. Top Clack, how did you damage it and what did you do to fix? Just want to know, I didn't get what happened. So what happened was I pulled a trace just here. So you can see there's like a line of solder there. So what happened was there was a trace, which means there's a wire that runs on the inside of the PCB from the LED to the diode. So you can see here there's the LED solder part there, and there's a diode just to the side. So what I did was I pulled the trace out by when I was clipping the leg off the piece of the LED. So I was clipping one of these legs off, and as I clipped the leg, it lifted the trace out. So all I've done is I've jumped that with part of the LED leg. So I've got a small part of the LED leg, jumped it from one side to the other, and just bridged that gap between the two. So that makes it fully functional and works nice and neatly. Now what we can do to neaten that up as well is just make sure we trim off any excess, just like so. Turn them around. Okay, and that's much neater there. It's all nice and tidy. So it's a slight bit of damage, but it does work. It's completely functional. It's non-issue in terms of the actual PCB life itself. And in fact, I've seen far worse things have to be jumped, such as switches and all that kind of stuff. That is literally just a thin trace. And if anything's ever going to go wrong on a PCB, that's probably the easiest one to fix. So just going through and tagging all of these LEDs now, and just putting them back into place. Making sure the second legs are done. If the first leg needs a little touch more solder, we'll add it. Because some of them might do. Oh gosh, it's so warm in my office right now. I've been absolutely freezing cold all day, and then since I started streaming, it's just got roasting in the office. I think the missus must have turned the heating on. Okay. Excuse me, just 1 second, guys. Apologies about that. My nose is just a little bit runny from the heat, so I just had to make myself a little bit more comfortable, so I do apologise. Okay, so just slowly moving around the board now. These are the last LEDs that we'll need to solder, and then we'll just test them, and then we'll clip them, and then hopefully we can then build the board, cap it, and go from there. Okay. Just 2 more left to do. And last one. Okay. Let's just give that a try before we clip any of these. We're just going to plug this in and give it a try. Make sure the last 2 rows fully light up as well, and then we can fix any with an issue. Okay, so the only one that's got an issue is this one here. Everything else across the board is working. Caps lock just needs to be activated. I know this is really difficult for you to see, but they all are lit up apart from this one here, so I'm just going to have a look at that one. Okay, interesting. That looks alright actually. It's one of the previous ones we've clipped. I'm just going to try reflowing the solder on it. Let's give that another try. Where's the USB? There it is. Okay, still not working. Oh, in fact, it's not one of the ones you clipped actually. No, sorry, I was mistaken on which one it is. Oh, okay, I can see what the issue is with this. It just needs a reflow. That should now work. Let's give that a try. Interesting. Okay, so it's not still working. We'll clip these off and we'll come back to it. It'll be a little bit easier to work with once we've clipped all of the rest of these off. And then we'll just have another look at it. And if we have to replace that one, we'll do it quickly. Try and catch up with chat in a moment and see how you guys are getting on. Appreciate this is probably one of my most boring streams ever, but I do apologise. We're almost there now, another 15 minutes or so and we'll be done, even if we have to replace this LED. Glow in the dark legends, yeah, that would be cool. I think PMK could absolutely do that with SP caps, because they do have glow-in-the-dark plastics that they use for keycaps. SA Glow was one that was the whole cap that glowed, not just the legend. So I think it's absolutely possible. I suspect that no one's done it yet, apart from on some of the more gamery type boards. Okay, almost there now. And then we'll just have another look at this switch that's not working. It could just be the diode that's not soldered properly. Sometimes that happens with cheaper PCBs. So let's just take another look. So it's just this switch down here. There's no LED on that one. So that's our up key for the... Everything looks alright. It doesn't look damaged or anything like that. So we'll just try reflowing it a little bit. Reflow the diode as well, and then we'll give that a try, see if that works. If that doesn't work, I'll probably just change it offline. Yeah, I think we've just got a dead LED for that one. I'll change that one offline rather than delay the stream anymore, but that's just one to look at. Pop the solder reel away, and then we can start to carry on with the build. Okay, so now we are ready to put the board back together. I say that one LED DHL DNL, sorry, we will come back to. We'll fix off stream, off camera at a later point. Just going to see if I can find the right sized bit for these without having to use a the actual Allen key provided, because it's just slipping a little bit in some of them. Yeah, it feels like it's going to slip. I feel like these are just slightly an odd size. Yeah, it's too big. I might just see if I've got some screws I can use for these instead. There we go. I'm just going to use these instead because these are a little bit more of a better screw. Hopefully they won't take up too much space and will work better in the housing. There we go. Just going to go diametrically opposed, so we just need 8 of these in place. So I'm just not a fan of those KBD screws. They don't feel like they're holding everything in place correctly, so we just want to make sure we're using something that's not going to strip, that's going to be easy to remove if we need to, or when I need to fix this LED. I'll take some of these out. There we go, a little bit easier that way. Going diametrically opposed as always, guys. Wherever possible, always try and screw things together diametrically opposed. That just feels like it's cross-threading a little bit. There we go. Come back up to this top side here. We're gonna, as I say, move our way inboard. There's only 6, sorry, not 8. There we go. Last one. There we go. So that's all now nice and solid in place. We can then pop the top case on, turn that over, and then these are the longer screws. Now I do have to use the Allen key for these ones because my screwdriver bits don't fit into the holes in the board. I'm just going to tighten that one up first. And then again, we're going to come diametrically opposed down to this bottom corner. Screw that together nice and neatly. Not over tightening stuff, just nice and finger tight. Over to this middle side, over to this far side, the right side. Again, just screw that down so it's reasonably tight. Up to the top corner. Okay. A full set of glow in the dark keycaps are already coming, slated for June. Yeah, there is one already coming. DNL says, I hate cheap screws, you screw them out 2 times and they're already rounded. Yes, that's exactly what happens. That's nice and neat there. Okay, we're just going to do the 2 central screws now. Rounded, yes, that's right. Diametrically opposed sounds a little bit more like X's general disposition towards me during our unfortunate association. Don't you really mean counter diagonal? No, diametrically opposed is it's an engine terminology. When you put in a header block. So the other thing I do a lot outside of keyboards is cars. So you put in the header block on, and you always go in a certain pattern, and it's usually diametrically opposed. But basically, it just means on the opposite side of the board and diagonally opposite. So You could say counter diagonal if you wanted. I guess that's probably technically correct, but from an engineering perspective, it's diametrically opposed. Is that what you Brits call it? Yep, probably. Okay, so this one doesn't seem to want to bite in. Okay, let's just try and get that nice tight. There we go. Okay, so that's the board all put together. We're now going to pop the keycaps on, which is always the fun bit, seeing how the board's going to look afterwards. With the spacebar on nice and neatly. We do need to reprogram the board for that. Page up. Yeah, well, we'll come down. We'll come to that side in a few minutes. We'll need the M key. S key goes there. Windows key. Caps lock. Go for the bright accented escape key just because it'll look fun. It is actually catching on the plates. The keycap's actually catching on the housing there, but it's not on that side. That might be to do with the way the plate's set, so I'll have a look at that in a bit. Tab, we've got the shift key over here, so that's the one next to where the LED is not working. Okay. UIOP, there we go. See if we've got the all of the keys for UK ISO, which will be the closest we'll need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A, S, D, F, G, H, J. There we go. Okay, starting to make some good progress now, guys, getting these capped on for you. As you can see, it's going to look quite good, this nice grey colour with the Sky Dolch key set. Page down key, just in there. These are going to be the wrong profile on that side, but we'll worry about that later. That's not the key set that's going to remain on it, because DNL has his own keycap set. Oops. Actually, I think we've got all the keycaps here for UK ISO, so we'll bob those on because they'll just match a little bit better. There we go. Oh, we've got the wrong key in there for page down, but it's fine. It's only for a sound test. Put accented arrows on as well. I think that'll look quite nice. Just set off the opposite of the escape key, but we'll use the standard coloured ISO enter key. Okay, don't need those. Left shift. Almost there now, guys. Almost fully capped the board. You put these to one side somewhere. There we go. And there we go, guys. That is the board fully capped. All of the keycaps are now on the board. I'm just going to pop these away, so I don't lose them. There we go. So there we go, guys. That's a KBD67 in full ISO layout with GMK Sky Dolch. That lovely silver plate shining through, looks really nice and neat and tidy. All of the switches and keycaps are nice and straight, no issues with those. There's a slight issue with the plate mounting. It is catching just on this key here. I don't know if you can see. If I depress that key, it's not returning. It just needs a little bit of a wiggle. I think that's just case tolerance, but we can probably fix that with just a little bit of movement in the case when we take it apart to fix that LED just under here. Yeah, the keycaps look really, really nice. It looks really neat and tidy. But you know what time it is now, guys. Let's give this a bit of a typing test and see what it is. Now, I apologise in advance. Everyone hates my typing. I don't type correctly, so I'm really sorry for that. But this is a KBD67. Oh, in fact, actually, one thing we haven't done is put the little rubber feet on. Let's do that first, because that may affect the sound a little bit. Let's just get these done first. Is the brass weight actually heavy? I've heard it's mainly just there for aesthetics. About to order it, but I keep getting put off by the radiator-like design of the weight. I actually like the design. I think it looks really nice, but it's definitely more of an accent piece than an actual weight, would be my take on it. There is no weight to it. It's just there for an affectation piece, but it does look nice. I kind of like that whole grille look. It does need a little bit of a polish where I've been manhandling it while we've been building the board. I don't have a cloth to hand to be able to do that. But yeah, I quite like that. I think it's quite nice. There we go. So there we go. That's all built, put together. Just catch up with chat. You're the man, dude. Did not notice it now, but thanks, my guy. There you go. There you go. Lubed Helio's the sub. I wonder if it would be possible to just shave off and use a tofu as brass weight. That's probably a little bit too effort for what it is. Yeah, I'd agree. There we go. Okay, caught up. Talisman Solution that says, I love your typing. Me too, it's authentic. Yeah, it's just how I type in the real world. I am still trying to learn how to touch type, but it's one of those ongoing things. So this is a KBD67 with standard stock Gateron yellows, which have been lubed with Krytox 205 on the stem and Krytox 106 on the spring. GMK clip-in stabs lubed with dielectric grease, and GMK Sky Dolch keycaps. There we go. So this sounds really, really nice. I am a really heavy typist, and these are really light switches, so please ignore the space bar. I really hammer that because that's just how I type. If I just press it gently, these are really light switches, and I generally use some within the region of like 25-30 grams heavier, so nearly double the weight. Absolutely lovely. I think it's really, really nice. My favourite part of the stream is Jay saying diametric composing when the chat stops for the start of the typing test. There we go. So I think it looks really, really good. I think the board is stunning. I think it sounds great. It's very muted. The aluminium plate really accentuates the sound for a linear type switch. It's quite firm. There's very little flexibility to the board, which again I quite like. I know a lot of you prefer flexibility, but this one's quite firm with it being effectively a sandwich mount board. I will just have a tweak and play with the LED on this one off stream when I program it for DNL, and I'll just make sure that the case is aligned correctly, because that escape key not returning is kind of frustrating for me, but it is definitely catching on the actual case itself. So I'll have a look at that. I should be able to fix it. I suspect it's just a tolerance issue on the side of the board. Nice spacebar thought. Yeah, it sounds good. Sounds really good. Electronics has got to go. Goodbye. You can just turn off the LEDs for a quick view. Of course I can. Let me just plug this in. Oh, come on, go in. There we go. There we go. That's what it looks like with the LEDs turned on. And you've got that nice glow through all of the keycaps. That's actually quite smart. I kind of like that. I think it looks quite nice. It's not too overpowering. It's really good to look. So there we go. I hope that looks good for you. It demonstrates rather substantially that keyboard community specifically about typing style, but yes, you corrected that. It's not about typing style, which would be a large barrier to participation. If people are led to believe that your participation is inauthentic simply because your typing style is non-standard or incorrect, the hobby is about lowering the bar on participation so that more people can enjoy it. I'm okay if people join the hobby simply because they like the pretty keycaps or like to collect stuff. Absolutely, yeah, the hobby is for whatever reason you want to get into it, whether it is learning to type correctly, whether it is having a nice functional board that you can use every day, whether it's collecting nice pretty keycaps or even pretty looking boards, you know, or if you just like something hefty and want to wave it around a little bit. But I do really like this board. I think it is one of the better looking 65% out there. The quality from a keyboard fans board is absolutely unreal. It's completely redefined, like the Key Cult #1 a few weeks ago has redefined my idea of what a $500 custom board should be. This has redefined what a $180 custom board should be for my kind of aesthetic purposes and where I view the hobby going. So absolutely looks great, and DNL we'll get this over to you. I think that one started working actually, so I don't know why, but it looks like it's working now. But what I'll do is I'll take it apart. I'll just fix this escape key not returning, because I think that's just a tolerance with the way the plate's screwed down. I think it just needs slightly adjusting, or it could be the case, or it feels flush all the way around, so I don't think it's the case. So we'll take a look at that. It could even be the cap, to be honest, that's got split or something. We'll fix the LED off stream and we'll program it, and then I'll post it back out to you in the next week or so. Study made rounds on RMK last year. Fast typists are fast regardless of their style. Oh, that's interesting. I kind of like to know that. That's good. Yeah, that sounds good. I can type around 72, 73 words a minute on average. I think my highest ever is 81, but again, I'm in my mid-30s. I'm not trying to type quickly, I'm trying to type accurately, but you can see I still make a ton of mistakes. But yeah, I think this board looks really good. I think it sounds great. I'm really sorry you can't have these keycaps, DNL. They're mine. But that is the stream. Unless anyone's got any questions in the next 30 seconds or so, we are going to close the stream there. It's been 2.5 hours long. It's been a long one today, but the LEDs do look really good, so it was worth taking that extra time and making an extra effort to make them look like that. Thank you, Pinga, for joining. And what's next? What am I building next? It depends on if you ship me stuff, UPass. If I don't get some of the boards coming in next week, then I will be building my Noxry 268, because I've got the board up here. I've got 2 PCBs and plates for it, and I will be rebuilding the Xylent plate that I built originally for the board and putting creams in it. But if I get something else in the next week, then I will be building that. Cable says, why do you even prefer ISO? Well, first of all, this isn't my board. This is for DNL, and that was the layout he chose. That being said, I do prefer ISO. As you can see, my personal custom board, the J01. Let's just bring this down so you guys can see. This board here is my personal custom, fully designed by myself, and then built as such, with the lovely clip-in brass pen holder that slots in magnetically. that was on stream a couple of weeks ago. This is fixed ISO because that's the layout I used, and that's for a number of reasons. First of all, it was what I was brought up on. Secondly, I personally prefer the look of it. I like the shape of this enter key. I think it looks unique. It's old-fashioned, kind of a bit like me, and I kind of prefer it. And thirdly, because I try to use ANSI, and where I hit the enter key is up here. I hit it pretty much there with my pinky finger. I always end up with a backslash whenever I type on an ANSI board. I do have a couple. I've got a Zephyr, which is ANSI. I've got a Vern, which is ANSI as well. So they're both built in that kind of layout. But for me, aesthetically, for typing ease and convenience, for what I'm used to, for the fact that I'm British, ISO is my personal choice. But this hobby is all about preference, so you can have anything that you want. So Cable, it doesn't matter. Nothing is right or wrong in this hobby. If you want to use a layout that someone else doesn't, then that's great. You know, if you want to use something that someone else uses, fantastic. It doesn't matter. The beauty of this hobby is you can have it how you want it. I can have my board how I want it. DNL can have his board how he wants it, and everyone in chat can have their board how they want it. So yeah. So there we go. Last couple of questions. Ergonomically speaking, you will have less trouble with your hands and wrists typing your way, Jay, than those of us who use home row because you aren't bending your fingers and wrists, which is much better for your tendons. The reason why I type like I do is because I'm used to typing on a ThinkPad at work. And what I typically used to do is I used to have one thumb here for the two buttons, because you'd have the two buttons for the top of the ThinkPad here, which is left and right mouse. I'd use this thumb for the trackpad, and then I'd just type with my fingers, and I'd just drop my thumbs down to move around and click around on the page as I needed to, and then I'd be back to typing. So my thumbs never made it this far up. I never learned to type with my thumbs up here. I learned to type with my wrists straight and my thumbs down low. So that's just one of those things. But it looks like that's it for the questions. Again, so Cable's just said, I used ISO DE all my life and I recently switched to Dvorak. I think it's way more comfortable to have my fingers on the home most of the time. Yeah, if you like it, that's perfect for you, dude. I can't use Dvorak or Colmac or anything else. It has to be QWERTY for me. I can just get away with using ANSI if I really think about it, but it slows me down maybe by 25-30 words per minute, just because I constantly have to try and remember that I can't use short left shift. I have to hit the key in the middle. I don't have backslash down here, it's up there. I use that an awful lot, and enter I just completely miss and end up putting slashes in everywhere. So that's that. P4 says, wait for my question. Have you put a question up there? Planning on putting Milmax 305s in the KBD67. Do you think there'd be any issues I might come across? The only thing you might come across is that there's not much space underneath the PCB. So if you think about the PCB being here, this is the PCB, the inside of the bottom of the case being there, I'm not sure if there's enough distance between the two for the Milmax sockets. I know you can't fit you can only just fit a hot swap board in there. That might be the only issue that you come across, but I think you'll be fine. I don't have any to try for you, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would give it a try and let you know offline. But that's where we've got to. I think you'll be all right. Just give it a try first, and if it doesn't work, you'll just have to solder them, I'm afraid. If I do find some lying around, I will give it a try on this board before I send it off to DNL, and I'll ping you and let you know. But I think that's it for the stream, guys. We're going to call it there. The build was a bit slower, so I apologise for that, but it looks great. I'll fix up the couple of bits offline for you, DNL, and I'll confirm to you when it's ready to ship. Thanks very much, guys, for watching, and I'll catch you on Top Clack on Thursday. So see you later, guys.